Here we are on beautiful Jones Street.
You saw Ted Jones.
Okay, let's do it. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Ted Jones World Podcast. We got another episode here with your guy, Ted Jones. Yes, that's who I am. What's up, guys? You can notice that my hair is looking a little bit fresh. You know what's interesting? Okay, so I woke up like last night, today as I'm recording this, I got like 10 hours of sleep. On Monday, I woke up, I was just like not feeling well at all. As soon as I woke up, I had a fat bagel, everything bagel, toasted with that tofu vegetable cream cheese. Because you know, I'm a vegano, but like I just felt, I'm going to turn on this light so I get a little bit better light with you guys here. But I just felt terrible as soon as I ate that. And like, usually, I know if you guys have listened to the podcast ever, you know that like typically I don't usually eat until like after 3 p.m. or so on most days. And I just felt terrible throughout the rest of the day. So much so that I took another nap before I went out and did stand up. I took a nap at like 5 o'clock. I get to the place where I do stand up and the bartender was like, "Bro, you look tired, bro." And then another guy who's doing the show was like, "Dude, you look hungover. What's the deal?" It's like, bros. Which is insane that you can potentially not look great because you've gotten too much sleep. But I think in a situation like that, I just had the gluten in the morning. And I do feel like food really affects the way you eat. And food affects the way you eat. Nice. Food affects the way you look and feel 100%. But we've only really noticed this over like the last 50 years since like the preservatives have been put in our food. So hopefully this guy who's in charge of new foods for the FDA, this guy RFK Jr. Look at this new stick. Will figure out the food situation. But I played tennis for the first time in a while. As you see here, I'm holding it's not a new stick, but I got strung recently, and then it's got that nice new grip. I feel like racket sports are some of the more difficult sports, but once you can play around, like get good at it, especially if like those of you who are out here who just play pickleball is a fun little sport, man. I'd recommend getting into racket sports because you're always moving. And the great part about a racket sport is you're never thinking about moving because you're always focused on the ball. Like in places like basketball, you're running up and down the court, and soccer, you're running all the time. And you're like, there's definitely a period of time where you're sprinting and you don't even get to the ball. And you're like, bro, what's the deal here? In racket sports, you're just moving, but you're focused on the ball the entire time. So you don't even realize that you're moving that much. Wow. That was a great observation, Ted Jones. Thanks. Appreciate that. But for the most part, it's been a challenging week or two. I've done, as you guys are listening to this, I will have done like 17 days in a row of stand-up comedy. And the thing is, like you do want to, this is just from what I've heard and what my perspective is that you're supposed to really go to the grind, do what you got to do to get to be the person that you want to be. But sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, I'm burnt out. So it's difficult for me sometimes to step away when I'm just like, oh, I have an opportunity to do stand-up, or I have an opportunity to edit something or film something. But I think the thing that actually drains me the most is doing the stand-up. Like I can edit for a few hours every day or like shoot something for the most part every day, and I think I feel fine. But I think what drains me is if I do multiple stand-up shows in a night and consistently days in a row. Just because I think emotionally, like even though I'm only really doing anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes on most nights on stage. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Like this past Saturday, I did 45 minutes of stand-up comedy, but this was 4 separate shows that I did, where I did 45 minutes. And like that was draining. And I feel like performing for 45 minutes, especially when it's separate shows, it's not like when a headliner does 45 minutes in a row. Maybe I'm not saying that, I'm not taking anything away from that, but I think having to regroup and go back on stage after like a 12-minute set an hour and a half later, because like you're still locked into the mindset where you're like, okay, I still need to perform. So like doing 4 sets over the course of like 6 hours, I think is more draining than doing 45 minutes in one particular set. But I do feel like stand-up comedy is great. I obviously love it, but I do feel like it is more draining than just the 12 minutes that you're on stage and talking, and having people listen to you, because you're supposed to be entertaining. you are sitting around waiting until you go on stage, and then afterwards, if you're preparing for another set. So sometimes it does feel draining. I'm not complaining. Obviously, very blessed to be able to do stand-up comedy. It's very fun, especially in the best city in the entire world. But sometimes I'm like, oh, it feels draining. And I do feel like doing it 17 days in a row. I'm like, bro, I need to take a day off. But it's tough. It's tough sometimes to take a day off when you know that every single day something is happening, right? I've talked about this before on the podcast. It's like the one day that you don't do stand-up, freaking somebody signs an $100 million TV deal because some guy was there being like, hey, anybody want a $100 million movie deal? Which one of you guys wants one? And then the one day that I'm not there. But obviously that's not the case. And for the most part, I'm a guy who believes in if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So whatever. I love how I just got into that tangent from talking about tennis, but I think that was just part of the talk of like feeling burned out. And like I watch a lot of motivational videos, but they say it's not really about the motivational videos. It's just a matter of like doing something every day and being disciplined to do it. Like today, for the most part, I wasn't really like puttering around this morning, but I was doing some things for social media this morning. And then eventually at like 2 o'clock, I was like, you know what? I want to go for a run. I did a fat run. And considering it was cold outside, I think I run faster when it's cold just because like I'm not really wearing that many clothes. I went tarps off, for those of you who don't know. I went running with my shirt off today, but anytime I feel like for the most part that it's over 50 degrees, the shirt eventually comes off because I do get hot. Not hot, but I get warm and I feel like, all right, I can take this to another level. And then I hit the tarps off. But I do feel like running helps. The working out helps. But the thing that does affect me is if I eat something crappy for the first thing in the day before I'm really hungry and ready for it. Like if I eat just to eat, I don't really feel that well. I find that when I put all of my food into like a certain window, I feel a lot better. You know, like if I have the iced coffee in the morning, iced Americano, and then from that point forward, I don't eat for a number of hours, I just feel better. I don't know, maybe that's just me because I've seen people of all different sorts, shapes, and sizes talk about how maybe they'll eat like 5 meals a day, or somebody can eat right before they go on stage. And that's something that like I think I've learned over the past few years and like doing stand-up comedy and just how I've felt and knowing my body that like I have to eat at specific times, otherwise I just won't feel well. And I do feel like the first thing that you put in your body is important. Like if you're gonna have a pastry and a donut and a bagel in the morning, you're probably not gonna feel so great towards the middle or the end of the day. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me, man. I did go through probably like, I want to say like 4 years of my life where I had so many ailments in my body. I just had these bursts of inflammation all over the place. And I think it was partly because of what I was eating. I wasn't working out and things weren't great. I just didn't feel well. And then probably over like the last, I'd say like 5.5 years is when I've started to take my health more seriously. And that was also becoming vegan. That's one thing that I did. But I think that playing competitive sports from the age of like 10 to the age of 20 years old, where I was playing some sort of serious sport, I was just over the fitness aspect. And then from ages about 20 to 24, 25, I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do that much fitness. I just want to chill out, bro. And then, yeah, recently I've gotten back into it. But I think there's something to be said. Like maybe at that point, I was burned out from all the fitness because I was like, all right, I'm doing all this fitness because it wasn't fun. It wasn't like I was doing it for my mind. I was doing it because I had to. And I think there's something to be said about that. Like if you have to do something because you have to do it, there's no way you're going to enjoy it, right? Like the amount of work that I feel like I'm doing now to further my career path is there are things that I enjoy, right? Like I don't think I'd be able to do a number of days in a row of things that are seemingly hard unless I enjoyed to do it. You know? So I think that goes without saying. It's got to be a lot easier to do things if you want to do it and it's hard. But if you don't want to do it and it's hard, forget about it. Forget about it, because then it becomes more difficult. All right, well, we have Christmas and Hanukkah coming up over the next about a week and a half or so, and they're on the same days. They overlap. And if you guys want to get me anything for Christmas or Hanukkah, why don't you guys give me a nice compliment? Shoot me an email, ted@tedjonesworld.com, tedjonesworld@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Or you know what? Just write it in this YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys listen to this podcast, because been doing this every week for a long time now. But I appreciate each and every single one of you guys who have, if this is your first time listening or you've ever listened to an episode of Ted Jones World, obviously I appreciate it very much. My dad listens to my podcast, which is a nice touch, but sometimes you're like, do you want your family to listen to everything that you're doing? Like, my dad is in Florida now. He's going to be there for the next, couple months. But he, for the most part, listens to all my podcasts, and then so does my grandma. So, like, those two, very supportive. I obviously appreciate it. And then my grandmother, too. But sometimes people ask me, people are like, Ted, do you care that your family listens to everything that you do? I feel like that's part of it, right? And I think it's now more so over the last few years where things are just so readily available that that's what people do. They're like, oh, this guy's got a thing that's readily available. Let's listen to it. It's not like TV, you have to like actively go and watch it. Now, anytime I got a new episode, if you guys are subscribed, it just pops up on your freaking screen, which is a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. I saw an interview with Jeff Bezos, and he said that at Amazon, 90% of the time, like 90% of what he's working on is AI. Now, I just got a package from Amazon, and I got 3 rolls of paper towels that came in a pack of 2 each. So I got 6 rolls, and it came in an enormous box. I think that's something that we should figure out a little bit more. I don't know how much cardboard boxes affects the environment, but also we've got a consuming habit. And I think for the most part, I haven't bought clothes for real. Like, I haven't gone shopping in a store in years. I occasionally will buy a graphic tee here and there, but as you guys know, 90% of the clothes I have just say Ted Jones World on it. But being a consumer, it's just so easy to buy things. Like, now you can just go, like, even when you're scrolling on TikTok, you're scrolling on IG, every 4th or 5th ad is something for you to buy. Or not even that. I should say, like, every 4th or 5th post is like, oh, well, you sure you don't want to buy this? And then if I say something, my phone's over there, it's listening to me, you're probably going to end up buying something, right? It's just so easy to buy things, and they end up usually being knickknacks or things that are seemingly cheap. And then there's like, what are you supposed to do with it? And I feel like even in my apartment, I've been here for years, and there's certain things that I'm like, all right, well, do I even need that anymore? Like, should I throw that out? And then a lot of them carry sentimental value because you're like, well, no, what? Maybe at one point I'll want to use this, or I need to use this, so like you don't want to throw it out. But it's just we've become way more of a consumer society. There was this documentary that I was watching. It was on just how we consume so much. As time goes on and your apartment fills up or your house fills up, you have a full garage. You're like, well, what am I supposed to do with all this crap? I can't throw it out. You become a hoarder. It's a lot easier to buy products that you think that you need when they're cheap, and you're like, oh, well, might as well buy this particular thing because I could buy it. It's small. I'll use it a couple times, but then I'll never use it again. I would love to know the percentage of people that have a garage in their house and just use the garage for storage. Don't even use the garage for parking a car in. Like, think about how many people have driveways. And if you guys live in the suburbs or you live in an urban place, think about how many people don't even need the garage anymore. People will just park in front of their garage. As long as the weather isn't insanely bad and it's not below freezing, people don't really need to use their garage that much. It feels like garages are being underutilized for cars. Remember, people always used to park in their garage. They got the fancy door going down, but now people just park outside their garage. Is there even really a need for garages anymore? There are in urban cities, obviously, but do people need the 3-car garage at their house, or they're just going to store a lot of crap that they have in it? It's an interesting question. Yeah, I wonder what the percentage of people is who still, is that the correct form of speech? I wonder what the percentage of people are who still use their garages in full and use all the car spaces in it. Yeah, that's interesting. And are we going to have flying cars soon? Who knows? The driving cars, I don't think are possible. Excuse me, the self-driving cars, I don't really know if it's possible in New York, given the amount of bikers and pedestrians that don't really follow the red light or the don't walk sign. That's something that self-driving cars can work a lot better in the suburban areas where there are not as many pedestrians and bikers. And it's not even just like motorbikes. I mean, cycling bikes. Because people in New York City, I'll even be honest, like if I see that don't walk, I'll look both ways. And if there are no cars or bikes coming by, I'm hitting the ginger walk. Like in other places where there's not many pedestrians or bikes all over the place, that's where the self-driving cars I feel like can really thrive. But in a city like New York, you really have to nail in where the pedestrians are, right? Like I've driven in a Tesla before or taken an Uber Tesla before, and it'll show you where the pedestrians are, but I don't think it's at the point where you can stop immediately and notice that people are still going to be walking when it says don't walk, right? Like that's a more human instinct as of right now. It's like, oh, well, I see that people are still crossing when it says don't walk, so I got to slow down. But if one of those cars is like, oh, well, it says it's a green light, so we're going to go full throttle, 40 miles per hour. That's something that's got to change. And we'll see. But I don't know why when Jeff Bezos says he spends 90% of his time working on AI, what does that mean? What part? Like the delivery part? Because now it just seems like Amazon is so fast at doing everything. And then you think, how much more efficient can Amazon get? I mean, I'm not at the workshop. I'm not at the Amazon shipping centers, so I'm not 100% sure. But the fact that you can order 99% of things on one website and it'll be to you within 72 hours is crazy. How much more efficient do we need to get? Like, why do you need to spend 90% of your time working on AI? That seems like a backlogged problem. That's the people who are working at the company. They're like, all right, well, yes, this needs to be fixed X and O. But from a consumer standpoint, I mean, like ordering paper towels on Amazon is a lot easier than walking 3 blocks and then having to carry paper towels 3 blocks. I know I sound like a lazy millennial 2024 guy, but that's just the way the world is now. We got hot water showers. We got things that are a lot easier to do. Things are a lot easier to do now than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then so on and so forth. And it's like, how easy can things potentially get? And that's where the idea of a simulation comes into play. It's like over the last 5 to 10 years, things have gotten so much easier for humans. It's like, oh, well, we're just living in a comfort era. Things are comfortable. We want the comfort food. We want the comfort house, the nice heat. And look, I'm guilty of it too. Even though I'm vegan, they're vegan comfort foods that I enjoy. If something's vegan, also, by the way, I'm like not a foodie at all. If something's vegan, I'm going to eat it. People ask, Ted, well, what do you miss the most about being non-vegan? If there's like a nice smelling piece of food and it's not vegan, sometimes I'm like, I wish I could eat it, but as long as you don't tell anyone. I'm joking. I'm completely joking there. But the fact that there are so many options in the place that I live, it's nice. And people be like, well, Ted, where do you get your protein? I eat nuts. I eat avocados. I eat rice. I eat beans. Everything that's vegan, I eat. And I get plenty of protein. I'm not protein deficient. And I think people misconceive what the food pyramid really is, right? Know what I'm saying? But yeah, this has just been a blizzard of episodes. This has been a blizzard of topics in this particular episode, and that's usually what the solo episodes come down to. It's just talking about whatever we got to talk about. I'm enjoying the weather that we have in New York, man. It really makes me appreciate the seasons when month to month you never know what you're gonna get. Life is like a box of vegan chocolates, as they say, right? Forrest Gump, you never know which one you're gonna get. Today, a little bit colder, a little bit rainy, but it's still nice. It's beautiful. What a beautiful day to be on this earth. Okay? But I would suggest, I think one thing, if you do feel like more groggy and in a bad mood towards the latter part of the afternoon, because that's all for the most part when a lot of us are still at work and we're like, we can't wait for 5 or 6 p.m. to hit. I would say watch what you eat for breakfast. Maybe not so much. I don't think lunch is as important to watch what you eat as breakfast is, because breakfast is just the start of your day and you had just been asleep for anywhere from like 7 to 9 hours. So I would say that watching what you eat for breakfast is super important. I'm not a health guru here. The way that I was acting yesterday and the way my mind was treating me yesterday was because of the food that I ate first thing in the morning, and how the rest of my day went was not great. Still made it through, still here standing. And oh my gosh, I can't believe it's taking me till the end of this episode to tell you guys, but we had our weekly Monday show, and the show starts at 8 p.m. I get there around 6 p.m. and there's just a leak coming down from the ceiling in 3 particular places, 3 separate places. One is directly on the stage. So we spent like 25 minutes moving all the chairs, all of the tables, and then putting the stage in the corner. So it was more of like a shotgun show, but it still went well. I'm telling my dad about it. Yo, what's up?
I heard your podcast just now.
All
so
right.
I just wanted to talk to you.
Nice.
Fun. So what's going on? What else?
So
I think that I would bet you probably did 300 last year.
300,
2024.
300 sets.
Shows, yeah, sets.
We'll see. I mean, December, I still got a number of shows to do in December, so we'll see.
Did you add them up yet?
No, I haven't. I guess I'll do that at the end of December. But our show last night, there was leaks in the ceiling, and it was like on the stage. So we spent like 25 minutes moving the stage around, moving the seats around. So we moved the stage into the corner, but it was okay. It was fine.
All right, that's funny.
Yeah, very
right.
funny. Very funny.
So who was the waiter who served the non-alcoholic, the alcoholic beer?
What do you mean?
Guy?
Who's the waiter? No, it wasn't that guy. No, it was more of a newbie. You're talking about the last podcast episode, right? You guys should listen to that episode if you haven't heard it. By the way,
You talk. Where you said that you the guy was served beer. He's been sober 5 years.
Yeah, it was a different guy. You don't know that particular waiter because my dad has seen me do stand-up comedy. He knows some of the waiters.
Who are you talking to?
What?
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to me. Well, good talk, Dad. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for calling. He doesn't know he was on the podcast, but I imagine, there wasn't really anything that was that revealing. So I don't think it really matters that much. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Ted Jones World Podcast. We appreciate you. We love you. Write me a little message. Check out on my socials. I'm going to be continuously posting on there. And yes, until next time, thanks so much. Love each and every single one of you. Goodbye.